chance of winning. Anyway, that game is so cutthroat, so savage that there is no room for revenge.
Oh,
It's just, yeah. So, and that's you just shuffle up and deal again. And the story behind that one is you're trying to take control of this futuristic city. So yeah,
that sounds cool. I think also the exercises where you're forced to encounter parts that you might avoid in your daily life. That's good for you. Like, okay, so when I was living in Toronto, and Magic: The Gathering, which is it's a card. I think everyone will just assume people know what Magic is. Maybe you can give us a quick 2-minute rundown of what Magic: The Gathering is.
I haven't played in a long time.
Yeah.
It's a collectible card game. You are a planeswalking summoner.
Collectible is the fun part.
Yeah.
You go to a magazine store and they'll have a rack of cards. So you get 6 or 10 cards in a little sealed package.
A few more than that, but yeah.
At the time, I was like, you don't get gum? But that was sort of...
Yeah.
And so you don't know what you're going to get. You've got rare cards, and the cards have the ability to change the value and the strength of your deck, So
you build a deck out of them. And once you have a deck built of 60 cards or more, you draw a hand of 7 cards and play your hand. And you got monsters to go attack the other player. You got spells. You got enchantments. Anyway, you build this engine. You build this empire, and you go crush your enemies.
And it's about flipping cards. And,
yeah.
It's. I wouldn't call it a simple mechanic, but it's a brilliant mechanic.
Oh yeah, it's very well designed. Anyway, you were telling about playing it.
One of the things about that is I've seen people brought to tears. One friend said, yeah, he's not good at games. He loves the games, but he doesn't like to lose. Like, I've seen decks of cards fly across the room, in rage and doors slam and that sort of thing. And I, back then I was like in my early 20s, like, oh, that's bad. You can't have people behave that. What a horrible thing to push your friends into. I think this is an evil force in the world. And now I'm like, no, that's competition. And the more you're exposed to those kinds of things in a controlled environment with your friends, hopefully supportive friends, you learn how to be more graceful in interacting with the barbs of the world. I thought, this is like a virtual reality.
And our group, and I think a lot of groups in general, there's no table flipping anymore. There's no cards. Yeah.
Is it sort of like email? I mean, remember when the first days of email came, you could write a thing and send it, and people hadn't learned how to there was literally a 3 or 4 year period where you'd have flame wars over email. Kind of like what you're seeing with the Twitter wars, except there's more rules in Twitter, so it's harder to get, but we're sort of learning it there as well.
I don't know that we're learning it there. I still have trouble with email. I find it very difficult to...
Well, you've learned to think before hitting send.
Yes, I've learned to think before hitting send, but even when I think before hitting send, there's no guarantee that you have no control over how somebody on the other side takes things, right? And if you're mad, it's going to come out mad. And even if you're not mad, but you're in a hurry or you're trying to be clear and leave no room for misunderstanding, and they take it wrong, you have no control. Anyway, it's different than email. That's what I'll say. I think it's different than email. I think people are playing more games. If you're in a group that's not going to put up with table flipping and peace chucking, then you learn that, right?
Chuck the peace and go to war,
Yeah.
Well, the other thing, I noticed it when... Were you playing with us when it was me, Frank, this guy named... what was his name?
I played before that. I didn't play that group.
Okay. But it was a D&D thing. That was... I first moved to Wolfville. I was like, okay, I want to play some D&D. I like that part. I've pushed it aside. There's a bunch of really neat people here. This is something I'm going to devote some time to exploring this. And during that time, I learned a bunch of things about the process itself. I feel like it's almost like group therapy.
You've said that before.
Yeah. And people are automatically role-playing because that's what you're doing. And so pieces of your personality will come out and you're forced to deal with them, but it's in a safe environment where, you're pretending to be drawing weapons. That's how it goes to the absolute... People are going to die. That's how bad this conflict can get, but people aren't really dying. And it's like consensual group. Every week we're going to do a serious role-playing session. And I think people, genuinely learn about themselves in a pretty positive way, but it can destroy groups. It can be very upsetting,
Yeah.
but I think that might be the best outlet for some.
Board games aren't as much
No.
that. Role-playing games certainly...
That's a whole dimension under
Yeah,
itself.
well, because you're so deep in pretend, and you don't know what kind of story the other person wants to tell, and just having... Anyway, role-playing games is a whole other thing. And you're right. Sometimes it turns into group therapy, which is not always what you signed up for. But board games aren't as much that. Anytime you talk to somebody, you could end up in involuntary surprise therapy session, right?
Yeah.
To
a degree, like a game kind of, if it's two people talking or three people talking, if you get upset, like, I'm out of here, I'm leaving. But a game where you're sort of committed to see the game through.
There's kind of a contract there.
It's, there's a little contract. I find it just fascinating. And the more